everyone, welcome back. This is Robin Riley for Bello's Designs. Thank you for joining me on my Talk Crafty to Me video tutorial that I'm calling Finishing Touches. We're going to look at a few ways to put the finishing touches on your cards to take them up to the next level. Before we get started though, I want you to join us in our Facebook groups. We have two of them. We have the Bello's Design Lounge, where we showcase all of our Lavinia products, along with the Bello's Design a la carte page. That's where we showcase all of our other crafty items. We are also on other social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok. All you have to do is search the hashtag Bello's Designs. You'll see some really fun things there. Okay, let's get started. Look at all the stuff I have sitting here. These are some of the supplies that I'm going to be using to give you a finishing touch on a card. We will be using various things, so as I do each card, that is when I will show you the supply that is needed. So let me clear my workspace here and we'll get started. Today I'm going to be using ATC cards. An ATC card is a small card that measures 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. These are scrap pieces that I keep a stack on my desk and I mop up ink with and then decorate them when I remember to do so. So let's look at this first one. What I'm going to demonstrate for you is how to create a frame simply by using a Sharpie. Sharpies come in lots of different colors. I absolutely love the metallics that they have. There's gold, silver, and copper, but you can also use the other colors. So just choose a color that would match your card. I'm going to bring this in to make it a little easier to see. I save the inserts of my Lavinia stamps and whatnot stencils. These are real nice sturdy pieces of card and they really help in this case. What you want to do is simply create a frame around your card and it's very simple to do so. I'm going to be using the gold today since I think it will match this nicely. Place your scrap card on top. You want to press firmly to hold everything in place. You want the top piece to be pressed down firmly to keep the bottom card from slipping. And all you're going to do is drag your marker down the edge of the card. You will do that to all 4 sides. Stay focused on what you do and move slowly. That is the trick. Going around the 3rd side. As you can see, I only let the card stick out enough for me to be able to see the edge. If you do any more, you'll have a tendency to slip. And oh, ask me how I know. All right, now the last one. And then I'll show you up close. I hope you can see there is a fine gold frame along the edge of the card. So just imagine using other colors for your card. It adds a layer of dimension. You can make this thicker if you practice a little bit by pressing the tip of the marker into the card. Now I want to show you something. This does happen to me often. I had said about staying close to the edge. If you open it up a little bit more, you will have a tendency to slip. And when you slip, something like this inevitably happens. And you think, oh man, I just ruined this card. But continue on. And let me show you what you can do to fix that. Where that slip is, I'm just going to color it in, but then I am purposely going to slip on all the other sides. This will give it another element of design, and then you won't feel so bad as if you've ruined the card. Again, ask me how I know. I've done this so many times where my pen slips, I get off the edge because I'm not staying focused. But I've also learned I can save those mistakes. So depending on the look that you are trying to get, all right, here, let me show you up close again. Hopefully you can see where my mistake was. And then I just continued making that same mistake all around the other edge. And that way it's not such a noticeable mistake. You can tell everyone, well, yeah, I did that on purpose. Okay, let's look at the next technique. Let me clear my spot here. All right, the next thing I want to demonstrate for you on this ATC card is how I use a white Signo Uniball pen to add highlights. Now, Signo can be tricky to use. Let me grab my scrap paper here for a second and bring it closer to me. Signos don't run freely all the time, meaning the ink doesn't run freely all the time. So you can scratch it off onto a piece of scratch paper. I tend to scratch it off on my finger to get it running. And you need to hold the pen vertically at all times. Here I'm just going to add some highlights to the inside of the tree by just dragging my pen down the bark of the tree, giving interest, showing light bouncing off of the tree. I'll do the same on the other side. And you can see how that just adds another element to your card, and it actually livens that piece up a little bit more. It was awfully dark prior to me adding that. Now let me demonstrate how I do those little white dots. This is one method of doing the white dots. I'm going to be using a product called Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It's kind of a mixture. To me, it looks like ink. It looks like paint also. And I use a stylus. Now, this stylus has a round ball on the end. People use these for decorating fingernails. There's a lot of dot art activities out there that you can do with styluses. I am going to use it, though, here just to show how I can make some stars in the background. So just dipping into the ink. And mine is very thick because it's getting older. I use my cap. I give it a little spritz of water if I feel that it's a little too thick, which mine is definitely getting thick. All right, let me thin that out just a little bit. And when using a stylus, it's kind of fun. I like doing dot art. Let me show you it on here. When you start out with a stylus, the first dot is always going to be your largest dot. And then as you progress, each dot will become definitely smaller. So it's just kind of fun. And that was only with one dip into the ink there. All right, let me go back and grab some more. And that's all I'm doing here is I'm simply adding white dots. What's nice about this bleed proof is that the color will not be absorbed, nor will it come through. So it's very opaque, this white ink. All right, let's clean this up. Moving on to the next technique. These are what I'm going to show you, different ways to create splatters. And bringing in another ATC. Okay, the first splatter I want to show you. And splatters could represent raindrops. They can represent snow falling. They could represent stars. All depends on what you're looking for. Okay, so with this one, since it's a relatively dark background, I am going to create stars. Now, I don't want my stars to come on top of my trees, so prior to us getting started here, I made a little mask for my trees just out of scrap paper. And I'm going to be using, a Posca pen. So let me get this shaken up. The more I can get this paint moving, the whiter my dots will be, and they won't appear to be so watery. So all I'm going to do is take a ruler, and I'm going to start whacking, and I mean whacking hard. And as you can see, the paint is coming out, and it is splattering onto my card. Let me remove the mask so that you can see. Now, various sizes of dots come from whacking, so it gives a very natural look to your stars, your snowflakes, whatever you want to call those, in your picture. You don't have a lot of control doing it this way, but you have some control. The more you practice, the more control you can have with it. But by making a mask, that helps save some of your artwork underneath. Okay, let me get this cleaned off. All right, the next splatter that I'm going to show you will be using Distress Oxide inks. These will give a nice splatter. Let me get my ATC card brought in here. All right, using this little card, I'll show you how I make splatters with the Distress Oxide ink. Again, I pre-cut my masks, covering the areas that I do not want the splatters to appear. Oh, let me get one more rabbit on here. Now, all you need to do is smush your ink onto your pad. You don't need a lot for this. And I'm going to be using a fan brush. You can actually use any type of brush. I'm going to add some water, just like that. Getting it on here. Tap off some of the larger dots. And then I'm using my finger for this. I am just going to splatter the ink and I do not need any more than that. Let me remove my little masks and show you the splatters. Now, because I'm using the Distress Oxide ink, this is going to fade a little bit, and it's just going to be a very light smattering of the splats in the background. But it does add one more element to your card. All right, the next one I want to show you, let me clean off my little mess here, is using simply water on the card. Now this is a nice colorful background, so the water splats will definitely show up. Let me cover my fairy. And I just, as you can see, I don't fussy cut like too closely. I just want the majority of the fairy covered. Clean off. I'm going to use that same fan brush, making sure it's clean since I just had it in the ink. And I'm going to, again, just use my finger to splat water onto the background. The longer you let the water sit, the more the ink will bleach. So again, depending on what you are looking for, you can let that sit and just kind of dry out on its own, or you can come in with a towel and dab up the extras. Clearing this off, and you can see, now this will continue to bleach a little bit more as it's drying. But another great way to add another element to your card. All right, another way to add splats to a card. All right, let me get all my little pieces off here. Now this is a piece of watercolor card that I used. You don't need to do watercolor card just for this technique. I just wanted you to know it does look a little bit different, and that's why. You can use acrylic paints. You do not need much of an acrylic paint for this, just a tiny little drop. And I'm gonna do this with not the fan brush this time. I want you to see that you can use any type of brush to get splats. So let me get our cat covered and a little bit here covered for my dragonfly. Once again, adding water. The more water you add, the thinner your paint's going to be. Just you play with this until you find the consistency you really like to use. I always tap off the extra so I don't get some huge blob of paint. But here I'm just going to tap with my finger. And as you can see, I'm also getting streaks, not just dots, which to me, that's really cool. I like that. Let me show you. I like that look. I think that's really cool. So you just need to let that set aside. It will seep into the card a little bit more. Some of the pieces, if they're super thick and you didn't want your paint down much, they will be thicker, but that's okay. That just gives you another element to your card design. All right, let's go on to the next technique that I have for you. All right, with this technique, all I want to demonstrate is that you can use on your card some products called Nuvo Drops, and you can see mine is well loved. Nuvo Drops, or you could use liquid pearls. Any of this would work nicely. Here I have, this is the Nuvo Drops Crystal Drops. It's a glossy, simply white product. Now what I do is I roll it around, and I do store mine upside down so that the ink is always in the tip. I always start out by pressing some onto my workspace just to make sure that it's flowing nicely. Now what's unique about using white is that the white, when it's dried, you will see how it has soaked up the color underneath. Now, if I put it in an area that's white, then my drop is going to stay white. And when those little things happen, your fingernail's a good way to clean that off. So simply tapping it onto my card and pulling straight up will give me that dot. You can control the size of the dot by how hard you squeeze. Now, if the dots don't come out perfectly round, if you don't like an oblong one like this one, I had a little tail on it, you can push it with your fingernail to get it back. Sometimes if your Nuvo Drops are cold, or maybe they're getting old, you may see that you're getting more of a pointed tip on them. And to eliminate that point, all you need to do is tap behind or tap it onto your work surface, and that typically helps level those dots. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I can already see color being drawn up into these white areas. So when this is dry, which it takes, you know, I typically let mine sit out overnight till I know that they're completely dry. You don't want to put something on top of them and they get smushed down. But if I would be able to look back at this tomorrow and show you, these would not be pure white. They would have sucked up some of the color. So keep that in mind if you're using white to add elements to your cards. Now, if you use something like liquid pearls, it doesn't do it nowhere near as much as the Nuvo Drops does. Okay, the next technique I want to show you is simply using a Posca pen to add dots to your card. Now, in doing this, these could represent fireflies, these could represent buds, they could be little flowers. It's all in whatever you want them to be. So one thing with using Posca pens, you really want to shake them well to get all of that paint mixed so that it doesn't come out watery. To get the paint to flow, you need to press down onto your work surface. Whoops, this one was really ready to go. But that's how you get the paint to come out. Always start off on your work surface, not your card, because as you saw there, I had that huge blob of paint that came out. You wouldn't want that to happen to your card. So simply by adding dots, don't depress, because this part goes in and out. Okay, that's what pumps the paint into the nib. Do that on the side. Don't do that on your card. But simply adding dots here and there is just a nice, easy technique to take your card up to the next level. And Posca pens come in numerous colors. Now, the last technique I want to show you is something that I learned from Eileen Godwin. When using a stencil, this is a technique I like to do. It just kind of gives it a nice artsy flair. I love Signo pens, Uniballs. This is the metallic gold. And simply what I'm going to do is trace just one side. And I'm not worried that I'm not on the edge either. Again, that kind of gives it more of that artsy look. Just tracing one side of the design. And this just gives a fun, artsy look, a little bit of glitz. And I have to admit, I do try to stay, like I started out on the right side. I will stay on the right side of these shapes, or the top, depending on how you're looking at this. I tend not to mix them up. I'll do a couple more down here. You could even add a few dots. Something I've always done, use odd numbers. So if I'm adding dots to something, I am always going to add 3, 5, 7, something along that line. Look, something so simple as tracing a shape just to take your card up to the next level and give it a nice finishing touch. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching these. I'll bring some back in so you can see them again. Here, let's look. Here's the, that's the one with the gel. Here's the Posca pens for flowers or fireflies. Check out how well that acrylic came out. I just love the fact that I got those streaks. Here is the white Nuvo Drops, where you can really see where the color has been pulled off of the card and into the drop. Here was the gold frame, mistakes and all. The Distress Oxides which is dry now, so you can see it's a very chalky, light colored dot in the background. Here's the one that was done with the water, so you can really see how that's bleached out nicely. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof. Look how nice and white that stayed. That's why I like that. It's just a really good ink to work with. And here's the card that I just did the highlights with the white Uniball pen and added some white dots. That stays pretty white too. But as you can see, the first set I did faded out a little bit. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing these different techniques. I hope you give them a try. Come on, get those cards up to the next level and add some cool finishing touches. All right, thanks, guys, for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.